right. Also from my side, welcome to everyone for this Python and JSON workshop part 2. We are going to look at generating JSON data based on experience I had during the past 6 months in teaching DevNet Associate and before teaching the emerging technology courses, model-driven programmability, also Webex Teams, and we will focus on the Webex Teams API and the data necessary to create spaces, members, groups, etc., to be able to allow people to communicate using this wonderful tool. So here are some data about myself, really passionate about technology, networks, security, programming, databases. And on the left you see me preparing myself for this session. That was in Barcelona, where I've been doing a lot of practical work involving Python. And Python is one of the major tools nowadays for systems, network management, and other type of developments. And in this workshop, we want to describe an exercise that you can practice after the session with your colleagues and your students, because very often you get a list of members that you have to create. In this case, it's a list of groups we have to create in Webex Teams. And the idea is that we are going to do it with a Python script. And on the left, you see the source data. You receive them from anyway, and you understand how it works. 3 columns, not more than that, a group, a name, and an email address. But immediately you see groups are being repeated, etc. That's why you have to create a structure, a tree structure, where you have one group name and then all of the members of that group. In this case, we are doing group alpha, kappa, and delta, not beta in this time. It's not a beta version. So the business context, you can read that on your own. Most of us understand the aim. Have a good look at the target structure, because in my demo, I'm going to do 3 things. Prove that the target structure works, is validated, and that you can create groups with this manual structure. The second demo is about reading the data from Excel, and then afterwards transforming, converting the data from Excel into this structure, and again generate groups. Let's first go into code. I guess my code's here. The first thing to do is I created this structure. It's based on my Excel example, but I want to find out, is this valid JSON? So I copy it. I can tell you that I made a few mistakes while developing this, and I was using this tool where I copy my proposal, and it says in my situation the way you see here, it's valid. So it's worthwhile to now experiment if indeed we can create groups, spaces, and members. I will change some names, like Nico will be Nick in this example. And Martijn, a colleague of mine from the Netherlands, will be Martin, and I will only change 2 names, Nick and Martin. And I hope that when I run this code, that you see that there is a group called Micro Demo with a certain person called Nick, and I should find Martin as well. So it's now proof that we have a class called dictionary. That's the type of this, because Python is able to manage all of the elements in this class called dictionary. Later on, we will have to convert a dictionary into JSON, and that's the example you find below. This is exactly the same data, only it's JSON. Can you spot the difference between Dict and JSON? The format looks the same, but if we can input JSON and Dict with double or single quotes, the output of JSON will always be double quotes in my tools. So when you use single quotes, there will be a problem, because let me check this same structure in the validator, and I will validate it now. You see a parse error. It expects double quotes. I had to learn this from the experiment because I thought I had made a mistake, but it wasn't. It was okay. Always a good idea to check if the JSON is all right. You can compare it to YAML. It's so easy to transform or convert JSON to YAML. This is just 3 lines. When you click, you see my Nick and my Martin in the new structure. YAML and JSON are very similar. As a matter of fact, YAML is a superset from JSON. If you want to know more, go to the emerging technology courses, go to the DevNet Associate course, or read my document, the document I prepared for this workshop, that you can use and change as you like, because over here we are explaining in 5 or 6 pages how it works, because in these 30 minutes I cannot explain every detail. I'd like to motivate you to test it on your own and to go hands-on, because hands-on is the secret. So what do I have here? We've created data, like Nick and Martin are in a group, and the name of the group is important for you to know. In this case, I called it micro demo, and the other group is nano demo, and then I have one called pico demo. So there are 3 groups with 3 members. So I've created groups. They are now known in my script. I have an access token. Hopefully it's still valid. It's valid for 12 hours. And this is the place to go. Cisco Webex for developers. It's explained in my documentation. Also over here in this line, it's explained. So you need to have a new access token nearly every day. What am I doing here? I'm going to perform a request where also JSON is used, else it won't work. I have to import libraries or modules. You don't have to write these, we use them. Webex Teams has an SDK, which is easy to use. And I have created 2 solutions, a main and a main 2. The main is the main part of a program that will perform all the necessary jobs. I have main and main 2, and you see at the bottom I'm using main 2 in this example. Easy to change into main to test if this works as well. As you can clearly see, the Webex Teams SDK script is much shorter than the RESTful API script. But we have to know and understand both ways of working, so experiment with it. I can also tell you that this example is a good example if later on you want to learn how to use DNA Center to manage enterprise networks, ACI to manage data centers, etc., etc. APIs are very similar, independent if it's a network, an application, or something else. We use SDKs and we call APIs in any possible way. It's not too difficult. Most difficult is the headers and authorization and authentication. That's more difficult. So we use bearer authorization in this case. Not going to explain. You will see it should work. And I'm going to run main 2. What's going to happen is going to loop. A loop is a for next loop, as you see here. We call it legacy name for it is a for next loop. And we go through all the groups. We create a group name that we select this way, because groups name, the names of the groups are level 2, level 1 is group. So below group, you see group name. That's how you position the 2 filters. And in this case, that's how we will try to create groups. Now, how to show this to you? I will try to put my Webex on the same screen. That's the one. Hela has just sent me a message, maybe about tonight's session, because we are doing a session tonight as well. So what am I trying to do? I have my JSON data. I created it on my own to find out if I can create spaces and groups. So what will I do now? I'm going to run this code and look at the right. You see decrypting. Can you see that? Micro demo is already finished. And nano demo is coming up now. Can you see? And I guess that Pico demo is the next. And what is this? Let me make this a little bit larger now. That's the result. And I've noticed when you do this with your students, they start liking Webex immediately. Because if you can do this with Webex, you can do similar things with DNA Center and the other tools I mentioned. In micro demo, I should see Nick, Martin, and Lisbeth. And the other groups similarly. All right, I'm happy about this demo. It works. I can create teams, groups, spaces with members. Sending messages is easy as well, but that's not my point today. What do I want to do now? Well, I'd like to delete my groups because my Webex environment will be full of all my experiments. So I've created a delete, and I've already tested this morning. So I will run the delete again, and they should disappear. It takes a while, deleting Pico demo, then nano, and then micro, and they're all gone. Hope you like this. I can tell that I like doing this, and if you can do this, you can do the DNA Center and all the other tools as I already mentioned. Part 2. This was part 1. Can I use my own structure based on an Excel spreadsheet? Can I use it to create teams? So I'm so happy that I'm now more motivated to start reading the Excel file. Now let's look at the file. There is my Excel, it's coming soon. So students of mine changed first names so that you cannot really recognize my students. It was one of the groups in the lab. Let me change Casata into Casato, just to see when I if I save this and if I read this file, will the name be Casato instead of Casata? Let's move up into my example. So this is full of cells helping to create the solution. Here I'm doing initial preparation and training, reading Excel files. So it's going to read an Excel groups spreadsheet. It's going to open the workbook. Then it's going to use tab, the first tab. You all know that you can have several sheets shown in tabs in Excel. And I'm using the first one, which is 0, typical in Python, that the first is 0. I'm counting the number of rows. So there is that's a function provided, able to count how many rows, which means I can loop through all the rows and read the cell values. So over here in my previous test, you see Vincent Casata. When I run now, it's Casato. I'm going to change Casata into a Casata again, because the student is not called Vincent, but he might not like the name of Casato. I don't know if it means something. I know Latin, but I'm not sure about Casata, Casato. Doesn't help at all. So you can easily read cell values, and you see I can find the group alpha, a group kappa and a group delta with a number of members. So that was my second demo. The first demo was, can I use a JSON structure to create teams, in teams to create spaces and members? Yes. Secondly, am I able to read from Excel? Right, we can. Now I'm going to the top, because over here in this Jupyter notebook, I prefer saying, because it's Jupython, and there are 11 experiments in this file. Preparation, the complete script with debugging. Debugging is print statements, etc. And the third is without print statements. So over here it's a lot of experimentation, still reading the Excel, but now instead of just reading it, can I create a group of persons and a list of the groups? Let me run the code. I have to explain one more thing. Excel, you don't have to program anything. There is a module called Excel RD, which can read the Excel that you need to do. And then JSON is a second module we'll be needing to perform all of the jobs. Now, in order to start doing all the steps to go from Excel to JSON, I have to create some rules. And by experience, I can really tell you, you have to think about steps and the rules. How will I now transform Excel into JSON, a dict list structure? Well, I have a member dict that you see here and a member list. I have a group dict and a group list. And the group dict contains a group name, as you see here, with an X in it, and contains a key members. Actually, it's a member list. And member list is here. I really needed to see all of these elements and decide if this is necessary to create the intermediate structures necessary to have the result that I'm looking for, the more complex hierarchical tree with all the groups and the members. So I'm opening the workbook, reading, and in this situation, I'm going to find all persons and groups in the spreadsheet, and I'm going to show it with print. Then I'm going to make a list of members and a list of groups, basis of all the spaces. So make a list of groups you see here. You start with an empty list, like with an empty list of members. You start with an empty list of groups, and using a loop, you collect all of the names that are necessary. And over here, the result is I have 17 rows. Fine, that's a check I want to make. Then I found a group with the name of alpha, and I'm building up. So I found the group, and I find a person, and I'll find an email. And this is the exact one-to-one conversion of Excel to a dict. But it's not yet the final tree. I have group, name, and email, and you find every participant in the result of my experiment. Try that yourself, and in the end I create a list of it. You should recognize list with the square brackets. So this looks okay. I am able to read everything in a structure that I can convert into a next structure. So this is a two-dimensional structure, and I'm going to change it into a tree structure in a minute. But before doing that, I want to see if I can really find out the correct names of the groups, because I need the individual names. Groups every group appears 5 or 6 times in the source document. So I'm able to filter and have just one name. And with this, I am able to continue, and now you see I have my list with all of the other information, but not transformed into the final version. Now we are going to do the next step, and the next step is the more difficult one. In the next step, I'm going to loop through the groups and then to attach all the members of that group to the exact group. So find all the persons and groups is a function that reads the Excel file, as we've shown before. This is just the same thing one more time. What is new? Make list of groups isn't new because we've already tested if we can find all the individual groups. New is that I have to attach the members to the correct group. I can tell you that this is the most difficult part of the solution. So I'm going to loop through the member list, and if it's the group I'm looking for, I'm going to attach the member to a group. So in the example I gave before, Nick was in group micro. When I see the name Nick and I know he's in group micro, I'm going to put him in this group as a member and experiment with it. You will understand when you really do it. Only doing it with your own data will help you in this case. Every script or program has a main function. I'm going to start making the main function here. And what is it that you see? I'm going to create a loop in the main function to find all the members. Here I'm finding all the members and I'm going to attach them. We are going to demo it in a minute. So you have to write 3 functions. When I was first developing this solution, I wasn't using functions. And I experienced without functions, it's too difficult because there are a lot of things to do even in this simple program. It's not too difficult, but 3 steps to do, and making a function with dev helps a lot. And you learn about function in Python Essentials, and we use a lot of it in the emerging technology courses and in the DevNet Associate course. It's not new for those who've been working in the courses. What is the most difficult part of the program?
Just a sec before you go to the most interesting part, I wanted to that we have opened the poll. It will be here for 10 minutes. So
yes.
Guys, please let us know what you think about the session in general. And also we have the last question in the poll about this new format of 30 minutes. Also put your opinion there, please. That would be really helpful for understanding how we deal with short sessions in the future. Sorry, back to you, Yvan. Yeah, I think we have like 5 minutes or a little bit
all
more.
Right. Yeah, indeed. We could use more time, but I've tried to describe everything I'm explaining in my documentation, and with the introduction I'm giving, you know where to go to, you know what it is about. If this is something you think I would like to try with my students, then go for it, and it should work. The most difficult part I highlighted in gray on my screen is how to create this 2-level JSON structure. Group, level 1 group name, and then members is a list. So I have a list and I have a leaf, as we call it in the Young model. So here is the group name. I call it group rec just to not make mistakes. That it's not the name, it's what I find in the rec. And you see that I have a key members where I will make a list of all members. And where do I find the members? The members are here. I'm calling a function attach members to groups, and the result is that I have all the members of this group, and then I know the name of the group and then the name of the members. You will find out if you try the code, if you experiment with the code, you will see how it works. Now let me run it again. And the result is that I have 17 rows. I've just run my code. I see that I have individual groups distilled from my source file, because there are many 17 rows and there are many repetitions. So now I see that I have a group alpha, kappa, and delta, and I know the exact information. What's important now is to check, is this a correct JSON structure? What will happen if I use this in JSON lint? It will say, no, it's not correct. I knew, so I'm going to tell you that you need to convert the dict into JSON. And when it's converted into JSON, you see that automatically a double quote is going to be used. It's not me doing that, it's just the conversion. And after converting, you do the same thing and you see it's valid JSON. Made me happy, but I didn't know first the difference between 1 and 2 quotes. So as soon as you do something in real, you learn a lot, and I learned a lot creating this application. So I'm using a lot of print statements because you cannot solve this problem without debugging code, and printing is so easy to debug. There are other ways of debugging that are so difficult. And it's here that I'm converting the dict into JSON. JSON dump S. Dump string, it means you take a dict called group struct and you dump it so it becomes a serialized data structure with double quotes, but that's automatic. And now I should have all the names, and I think that my 3 functions, make list of groups, attach member to the groups, work fine. I have the main function, I executed it. Always in my example, I transformed or converted into YAML. Here is the example of the spreadsheet that we've just read into YAML, and you see group alpha, kappa, and delta. I can show it in a pretty output. This is JSON format. Pretty means human beings can read it more easily than the serialized version that I showed just a second ago or a minute ago. That's not human, not possible for us to understand. So pretty output is easier and helps a lot. And you use JSON dumps with an indentation statement. You see now it's 2. If I make 4, you see that it becomes different. But typically an indentation of 2 is more than enough to see the structure. The levels. Groups is the container, is a list, as you see here, of individual groups, and groups are containers with, first of all, a group name, which is a leaf, and then a list of members. And the members are all containers with 2 elements, a name and an email address. That's the minimum we need. All right. The next thing, I'm just for my own exercise, transforming it into XML. You see in the example, not too difficult, so you experiment with it. And now I'm going to the part where we should like to create the new groups, not Pico and Nano, but my other new groups, adding new groups and memberships. Let me run this code now and show you the Webex stuff. And so I'm going to run this now. I should now see group alpha. It's appearing already. I should then see kappa, I believe. There it is. And the next one should be, you see, it takes a while. It's real live happening, live. Group delta. Beta is not among the groups. You know, beta has another meaning. So the groups are there. In alpha, I should see my student called Casata. Let me check if you can see him. Vincent Casata. And I see other names, Milo, etc. So I've now automatically I'm reading from an Excel file, and in one go, I'm able to create an intermediate structure that I can send between machines because it's JSON, understandable by other systems, and I can create on the same system or on another system. I'm able to create the spaces and the teams. Right. So that was the example for Webex. And now it's up to you. That's the next example. I'm not going to explain this, but the aim should be that if you understand the Webex Teams task that I've just demonstrated, you should be able to read this spreadsheet about routers, switches, and interfaces and transform it into JSON. And if you can do that, I would be very happy because it would show that you understand how to manage this type of scripting. It's more difficult than just filtering what we are doing. Generating JSON isn't easy, but why is it important to try what it's doing? Well, all of these teams who create systems that we are using in real life, Python is the programming language we use, but we like to use Ansible, we like to use Docker, we like to use DNA Center, we like to use Webex Teams. And all of those developers creating these, let's say, tools and applications, and name it what you like, they have to create very difficult structures. So you have, at the end of this exercise, you should have more respect for those developing this. And maybe you don't know, but Cisco has always had very good development teams. I remember a story from the 90s, early 90s, when they were creating OSPF routing protocols on their systems, developing code based on the IETF standards as well as ISIS. And in those days, it seems that the teams from Cisco were performing better solutions, more powerful systems to manage the networks. That was 30 years ago. They were already writing a lot of code then, and they still are doing that. That concludes the demo. At the end of the demo, I show you an exercise for yourself. I have a solution. If ever you're in doubt, I can send you my solution, but not right now, because it's a very good exercise to try that with your group of students or anyone in your neighborhoods to try to create a JSON structure for network devices. And one of the JSON formats you could create first is this one, a rack with devices. Looks quite okay, but more difficult would be if you want to use the IETF data model for interfaces, because this one is far more difficult than the previous example. So you have to create this one first. If you can do this one, maybe you're ready to try that one. This is deeper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels deep. And this example is only 1, 2, 3, 4. So one level less, but that's the difference. So that's it from my side. Hope you like the idea of doing this workshop with your students or with your colleagues. Are there any questions or anything else?